profession as chief surveyor and head of geomatics and survey, and she was transitional project manager for shell companies in Nigeria. His career has involved technical and leadership roles, high operational exposure, contracting, HSSC content and technology deployment, supported some of the largest offshore oil and gas projects in 2 continents of the world, and he is backed by very strong credentials and a proven history of on time, on budget, high quality deliverables, and safe operations. He has thrived in diverse operating, contracting, and cultural environments, and led major improvements in HSSC systems, performance, and contracting. He is a skilled quality management system auditor and integrator of HSSC critical and business critical systems and procedures. And since 2010, he has been an associate lecturer at the Faculty of Engineering, University of Lagos, and he has continued, in this developing young surveyors and engineers alike. Thank you very much. So then we have Surveyor Femi. All right. So your fellow lady, so Femi Alabi is a master's degree holder in the field of surveying. He's the founder and CEO of One Space Works and Surveying and Geomatics Company. He has worked in a wide range of companies, and he has diverse experience across different fields of surveying, ranging from hydrography, cadastral, and engineering surveying, as well as thank you very much. So, this is just a brief introduction of our panelists for today. So, without further ado, I'll be inviting Surveyor Peter Ekubari to start the keynote presentation. Just the slides. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Surveyor Peter.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me, or good afternoon?
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Hear you, sir.
Okay. So, yeah, thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity to have a discussion with you guys. I don't know, can you see my video?
Yes, we can.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, because the video is, the angle is a bit skewed. So I just want you to, for those of you who don't know me, just for you to have a brief glimpse of me before I switch it off, because the way my setup is you will observe that I'm looking at something else and I'm facing somewhere else, which is not very good. So I will remove the video in a few minutes. But I just want to plead, please, if you are, just go on mute, because I don't want to use the word that I'm allergic to noise, because I think a lot of my students will know I always say that I don't like noise. So if there is noise in the background, it's very, very distracting, And so if we can all just go on mute, let me be the only one speaking. And if you want to maybe speak, I think the plan is to have to have questions at the end, right?
That's correct. That's correct, sir. We have a Q&A section at the end of the keynote and panel session.
Okay, I have 20 minutes, so let me. So I've been asked to talk on coastal and hydrographic surveying challenges, solutions, and the prospects. Thanks once again for giving me this opportunity. It's always good to talk to young people. Young people and developing people has always been my passion, and that's why I actually wanted to be a lecturer at the University of Lagos or any other university before I went to work for Shell. So it's a good opportunity to use this as a learning process for you guys, because I think when your chairman was talking, he spoke about those of you that don't know a career, I don't know the career path to follow. So I hope maybe after this lecture, you switch over to hydrographic surveying. So I will be talking about hydrographic surveying and challenges. The next slide, I will have my outline, which is going to be, I'll give you a brief introduction, which is all part of what we're doing now. And then I will look at the Nigerian coastal zone. So we go to the meat of the matter, which is what are the challenges. Another challenge, we talk about a few important aspects like marine, price of getting it wrong, the importance of coordinates, project preparations, and then we look at solutions, because it's always good to to list what all the issues are, what are all the problems, but what are the solutions. And then we look at what the prospects, because as young people that are going to take over from, or taking over already from people like myself, because I've already left Shell. So it's a good opportunity for you to know what is out there for you. Yeah, and then we conclude with the question and answer session. So the next slide, please. So I just want to, for those of you who don't know about hydrography, I would just have maybe just a brief overview of what hydrography is. I'll just give you some key things. In terms of hydrography is actually has 4 main components. So what we determine is positioning, water depth, and then we look at features as well as what are the seafloor characteristics. So historically, we're looking at more at positioning and depth in the past. And with those depths, you can pick up what features are like wrecks and blah, 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 but it's gone beyond that. So hydrography is actually managed at the global level by what we call the IHO, which is the International Hydrographic Organization. There is a World Hydrography Day, which is coming up, I think sometime later this month. So I want to encourage you to try and attend. And then also, please, can you go on mute, please? Yeah. So we look at hydrography, which says, I'll just read that. It says hydrography is the branch of applied science which deals with what? Measurement and description. And the measurement and description is exactly what we're talking about, the positioning, the depths, and blah, blah, blah. So on the next line, I also have something that has to do with how we see hydrographic surveying in the oil and gas business. And it says it's just concerned with the description of the condition of the seabed, because that's what the E&P business, what is there on the seabed, yeah, and the location and condition of the facilities on the seabed. So those are the requirements for E&P. But I've just gone further down to just coin out something which I also use as a lecturer. This is what I actually, my own form of definition of hydrography. I said determination of positioning, X, Y, Z, latitude, longitude, depth, as well as what qualitative and quantitative interpretation. That qualitative and quantitative has to do with what your features and your seabed. Qualitative, bring that is more like comes in from your experience, the kind of capacity or capabilities you have, while quantitative is the one you can actually mathematically model. So the next slide, please. So now we look at the Nigerian coastal zone. Nigerian coastal zone is almost 853 kilometers as per what you have in Wikipedia in terms of length of the coastline from all the way from Badagry area down to Akwa Ibom State. But one important thing happened recently, and that has to do with the approval of an increase in the exclusive economic zone for Nigeria as a country. And thanks to Professor Awoshika of the Nigerian Institute of Oceanography in Victoria Island. So he did a lot of work on that. As most of you who have taken my course in hydrography is something that I teach, which is law of the sea. And you know that the EEZ is usually 200 nautical miles from the stated baseline. And so Nigeria has just gotten an extension of 20 nautical miles, making it 220, which is a great feat. And there are lots of resources within that space, as we will find out later. So the next slide, please. So what I'm going to do now is, next slide, it's just the same thing, but in another format, just for you to have a clear picture. So what are the challenges? We all know that the ocean can be something else that is very difficult, like a wild cat. See, but what we want to see at the end of the day is a tamed cat that we can deal with. Because if you have if you have a wild cat, even if you put it in the zoo or put it in the cage, it doesn't take away the problem. The problem is still there. But if you are going to go into that cage, you want a situation where you have the cat on the right, which is the tamed wild cat. And you can also see the marine environment in that space. You can see the ship, a vessel there that is, maybe gale force 5 or 6 or 10 wind, and then you have the very calm sea. So we want to move from the wild cat situation to the tamed cat situation. That's what we all do in hydrography. So if this is the only thing you take away from here today, just memorize this picture that the environment we are dealing with is a wild cat, but we want to get it to the situation of a tamed cat. You know, the cat in the house, you can play with the cat and all that, but you can't play with the wild cat. Yeah. The next slide. But with good understanding, you are able to tame that wild cat, which is what we do in hydrography. So what I've just listed here are some of the challenges. These are not exhaustive. There's a lot. And I wanted to put, but I see that since I'm talking to young people, it's better to just put it there. But if I'm talking to maybe more people who have experience in and exposure in hydrography, I'm going to limit it to what are the key items, But this time I just decided to put everything there. So one, it talks about understanding the marine environment, understanding. And I went to the Bible. I'm a Christian, so I went to the Bible and I just picked up something in Proverbs where it says, "The one who gets wisdom loves life, but the one who what cherishes understanding will soon prosper." That is in Proverbs 19:8. And then in Proverbs 4:7, it says, "The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Though it costs you all, get what? Understanding." So one of the things I see is the fact that a lot of people do not really understand the environment they are working. And also, do you really understand the marine stakeholders, like you have on the right-hand side, where it says that this is from the COMET project, a project in the US, that talks about sciences that comprise hydrography. You can see physical oceanography there, ocean acoustics, cartography, marine geology, as well as geophysics. So these are all the things that all link up to. So do you understand the involvement of these guys in delivering the project? So that's a challenge. And then if you go to the next slide, just one level, just the next slide, I will come back again to this one. The next slide, yeah. So what is happening here? That's the marine environment we're talking about. No, just this one alone. Yeah, what is happening in this space? You see the ocean water that has two different colors. I know a lot of you will think that this is where the Atlantic meets the Pacific Ocean and blah, blah, blah. No, this is just one of the pictures we took where I was doing some work in Shell. It has to do with when you have runoffs coming in to the main ocean, maybe at low tide, and you can see the difference. So this poses a challenge. If you are doing surveys in this part of this location, what will happen? You have to, if you take your TS deep, that is the temperature and salinity sensor for your speed of sound, maybe you took in the morning and you are working within this area, you're going to get very, very bad results. Yeah, if you go back to the next one, the first slide, the slide before this, go back one level back. Okay. So now that's the marine environment. So understanding the value you bring to the table. As surveyors, we are there to create value for the business that we work for. Save money for the company. I don't want to go into details of all the things that I was doing for Shell and the amount of money I saved during my career, but it was huge because the company recognized the fact that we were there not just sitting on the desk and not doing anything, but really adding value to the E&P business. So you need to understand. And then understanding the project life cycle. When you are doing something, every project has its own life cycle. So what I have on the right-hand side, below where you have hydrography, is the life cycle for an E&P project that starts with exploration, you appraise the well, and after that, you do all the development concepts and blah, blah, blah. And then you have your field development. So the field starts producing. That is when you get to production. And at the end of the day, you now get into the commissioning phase. So do you understand exactly what your role is in getting all these things, making sure that you are adding value at these various phases of the project? So you're given a job to do. Do you really understand what you have been asked to do? Or you just see it as an avenue to make money and forget about every other thing that comes with it? So that's... and then we also talk about the price of getting it wrong. We're going to see a few slides that actually explains some of the disasters that have happened. Some of them not really related to surveying as such, but what can happen in the marine environment. And then we talk about the water depth challenge. So the water depth challenge is the drawing you have there where you have different oil facilities, and you can see that some of them are sitting on the seabed, but all of a sudden you start seeing tension leg, FPSOs, and blah, 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 as you move from shallow water to deep water. So in these areas, the same equipment you use for shallow water, is that what you are going to use for deep water? Your positioning systems in shallow water, is that what you are going to use for deep water? So these are all challenges that you have to deal with. So that's why you really need to understand the water depth challenge. And if you use an equipment that is rated for 50-meter water depth for 500 meters, it's going to do what? It's going to implode because the pressure in the water is going to crush the equipment. So these are some of the challenges you have to look at. And then the next one is we also talk about the macroeconomic factors. We all know what is happening in Nigeria today. And that will all link up to the cost of equipment later because inflation is high, the exchange rate, equipment that you may buy for maybe $200,000 or $550,000, it's still $50,000, but how much are you going to pay in Naira? So those are the factors. And also, in terms of running your business, is also the amount of interest rate you have to pay when you take loans and all those kind of stuff to pay your staff and all that, as well as government policies also. All it takes is for government to make one good policy and it favors you and your business thrives. And all it takes again is for the same government to make
Please, let's endeavor to mute our mic immediately. I think it's just part of joining the virtual meeting courtesy. Part of the courtesy of joining virtual meeting is to mute yourself even before you join the meeting or immediately you join the meeting. Please, let's be courteous. Thank you very much. So Peter, you can continue, please.
How about for Kini? It's
Okay.
No.
You keep muting me because I'm the speaker. I have to keep on muting myself. So I think the way it's set up. Yeah, please. So we also have lots of the Petrobras in Brazil. These ones are doing exceptionally well. So our NNPC also is coming of age. They're taking a lot of decisions in that space. And then the contracting behaviors of hydrographers when it comes to tendering, people bidding for jobs and not being able to execute it, or they bid for jobs, and at the end of the day, they run into trouble because they hired vessels, the positioning system goes bad, and they still have to pay the vessel owners and those kind of things. So what's the role of SOCON? I did SOCON a couple of years ago, and what happened? I got drilled for almost an hour during my project defense because nobody understood what I was doing. I don't know if the situation has changed now, but it's still something that that has to be looked at also, because hydrography is not something that that I would say has the prominent role it should have in SOCON as it used to be, as it should be, not as it used to be. So there's also a new agency that has just been set up, which the former hydrographer of the Navy is been appointed to head that as the hydrographer of Nigeria. I've forgotten the title, but that's the new role. It's a new agency, so they're just starting. A lot of you have capability and capacity problems, issue of project preparation, execution, lack of baseline and research. A lot of us know about this. Those of us in the industry, we are looking for basic data you cannot even get because it's not there. Yeah, and then we have equipment cost, and then you also have issues of data, yeah, which we'll see in a few minutes, and then technology. Technology is also critical because this day and age, you have machine learning, you have AI technology, all of these are creeping into the business, and this is exactly is the way the world is going, and it's going to change a lot of things, whether we like it or we don't like it. Yeah, the next slide. So what I've done in this next slide, just to show you some of the things that could go wrong. So the price of getting it wrong. So if you look at what I have here, this is public information, so it's not confidential. If you go to the website I have at the end, you can link it up yourself and see what latest information is there. But you can see some real disaster that actually happened offshore. No, go back to that slide you were. The slide, the next one. Yeah. So you can see disasters that have happened. A lot of them not due to surveying, some due to surveying. But if you go to the right-hand side also, you see deadliest accidents. So this one is in terms of cost, and the one on the right-hand side is in terms of human deaths, people that have died as a result of maybe fatalities in terms of somebody's mistake or not doing what they are supposed to do. So it's really, really huge. And some of these things are apart from the fatalities involved also in terms of cost, it's also a huge cost outlay to the companies. You know what happens? Insurance has to pay for some of these things. And when insurance pay for them, what happens the next time your insurance goes up? So if you look at number 6, which I highlighted there, next slide, you can see that one, the cost in terms of cost was $220 million. And this is just a topside platform that was being towed from somewhere, I think somewhere in, I can't remember exactly now, whether Indonesia or Singapore, I can't remember. But they were supposed to have done a survey to map out, because in the Far East, you have a lot of volcanic activity. So you have a lot of outcrops, which we call shoals, that would hinder movements of vessels, particularly those vessels with very, very huge drafts. So they were towing this, and they were supposed to have spent $100,000, and somebody kicked against it, and they did not spend it, and said they should just go ahead. And you can see what happened at the end of the day. Yeah. So the next one is is just an oil rig. That rig happened to have been in Marina Jetty for a long time. There were 2 of them. One is still there. And then the first job, the next slide, please. The next job that rig did they had a problem with punch through and weather and all that, and they could not do any work, and they had to tow the rig. So would it surprise you why those rigs could not actually make a lot of money? That's why they were all mod there and taken over by Amcom and blah blah blah. I think this one has been sold or something like that. Yeah, and then you see also another price of getting it wrong, which is the issue of a telecoms cable on a drilling bit. You know, we would have had exactly the same situation on the on this our new Lagos to Calabar road. You know, if not for the fact that the government now decided to change the route, because there are lots of cables. You know, Google, they have a cable coming to Lagos, SAT3, the one from Glow, and all other companies coming into Lagos. And if the road alignment had remained where it was, they could have damaged those cables. A lot of us knew what happened in March when there was a problem somewhere around the Ivory Coast on the internet when one of the cables was cut. You know, so these are things that can happen. So the price of getting it wrong in the offshore environment is always, 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 and that's why offshore surveys are more expensive, and that's why also hydrographers are paid a lot more than land surveyors and other disciplines in surveying, because the risk involved is a lot more. And yeah, so I don't know how am I doing for time. Okay, I got 2 more minutes. I think I should be able to do in 3 minutes. So on the project preparation, the next slide, I will not go into that. You can go through it yourself. But in that project preparation, these are just bullet points in terms of if you don't get it wrong, for example, you could run into trouble in this space. Particularly, for example, if you have those acts and regulations that are guiding your work, and all of a sudden, for example, if the new National Hydrographic Agency Act says you have to get approval from the agency before you go and do an offshore work, and you don't, what happens? Your vessel can be impounded. And once your vessel impounded, forget about the vessel owner. If you are not the owner, you are in deep trouble, because it's not the business of the vessel owner to go and get those permits. It's your responsibility as the hydrographic survey company. So the next slide. So the other ones you can look through yourself, or maybe during question and answer. So which coordinate reference system? These are all the coordinate reference systems we have in Nigeria. So when I was in Shell, we used to use the NTM, the first one, the one with mid belt, west belt, and then the east belt. I know that in Lagos, you guys use UTM and all that. Some people actually stick along with WGS 84, but these things have issues. And you also have residual risk. You know, for example, you are working for one company, they use a UTM, another company uses NTM. Like if people are working and they want to tie into maybe my former company's facility, you have to do all kinds of conversions. And if you don't get it right, like I was involved in a project where an online surveyor made a mistake in terms of the coordinates of where an AUV was to come out, and the AUV came out and the propeller of the vessel slashed it to pieces. I can't remember the cost of the AUV, but that's gone down the drain. So these are, we look at it as if it's a minor problem, but it's not a minor problem. It's a very serious problem. And there are lots of people now who call themselves online surveyors or online navigators. They are not really surveyors. And the major difference between yourself and them is actually coordinate reference system, because we as surveyors have a firm hold on coordinate reference system, but those guys don't know what coordinate reference systems are. So next slide. So the importance of coordinate reference systems, you can read those ones, read them up yourself. Most of them are legal, so you have to comply with the law. Yeah, next slide. So you talk about datum. So you can see this guy. Next one, please. Just what is happening here is that you want to try an anchor. What you see on the left-hand side is a field in Venezuela. All those lines you see that they're all pipelines and all that. So you have been asked to go and drop an anchor at X and Y latitude and longitude. You can see the various datums there. If you use WGFs, that's where you fall. If you use your local datum, that's where you fall. So you have to be very, very careful about all these things to decide which datum to use. Yeah. And then when we talk about solutions, so you know, talk is cheap, but you discover that the problems are a lot more, but the solutions are fewer. So get understanding. Understanding and personal development, they go together. So if you don't understand what you are doing, you need to continuously develop yourself. You need to go to school if you have to. You need to go for courses if you have to go for courses. You need to take webinar training like this if you have to. And also solutions, the policy direction of the new National Hydrographic Agency in terms of funding for research, capacity building in industry. So when they come up with their programs and all that, I think it's going to help actually to solve some of the problem. And then deliberate government policy. The NCDMB is the Nigerian Local Content Development Board. set up by government during Obasanjo. Beautiful idea to ensure that a lot of the businesses done in Nigeria, there is a Nigerian component. Because previously in the oil and gas business, everything was done overseas. Even most of the survey companies then were all foreign companies. But because of the deliberate government policies, Nigerian companies are beginning to get hold in the business now, which is really very good. Collaboration and consolidation is also good because I know that a lot of in Nigeria we always like to hold things ourselves. It's better for you to have 5% of 100 billion business than you to 5% of 100 billion naira business is a lot better than to have $1 billion, 1 billion naira business. 5 billion for you, 5% is 5 billion. Yeah. So we need to look at consolidation to try and solve a lot of all these fragmented problems, and for surveyors to collaborate among themselves. There's also the talk about blue economy. There's a lot of things coming up in that space, and when the government actually flesh out what they want to do and work out, it's going to help a lot. Technology deployment. Technology is one of the things that will solve a lot of problems. I'll just put this company there, Ocean Infinity, because they are working on having unmanned vessels. I'm not talking of AUVs. That is real ships that are unmanned. When I was in the UK a couple of months ago, it was even on BBC News. So it's going there. Yeah, it's still at the infancy, just like a lot of us that were watching Space 1999 in the 70s. A lot of the things they talked about in Space 1999, it's all like your WhatsApp and all today. You talk to somebody real life. The only thing that I've not been able to do is to transfer somebody online so that you can see the person directly in front of you. So those are some of the solutions. In terms of prospects, maybe I'll just highlight it there. Maybe during the question and answer, I can talk a lot more on it so that in terms of time. But in terms of the prospects, there's still a lot of jobs for you if you are willing to get understanding. That means if you are willing to develop yourself. Hydrography is one of those. When I joined hydrography, the way we used to run hydrography, the principles are the same, but the way we used to run is completely different today. So if you are not ready to develop yourself, sorry, there will be no job for you. It's not my doing. It's not because I'm saying it. It's the reality. Because technology is, you have one robot that is taking the role of an online surveyor. But if you don't develop yourself to be able to program or do something about that online robot, then unfortunately there will be nothing for you to do. So opportunities also exist because the IOCs, like I said, are leaving Nigeria, living from spaces in Nigeria, but there are new players that are coming in. The survey aspect of those works has not gone away; they will still be done. So there's still opportunities for you there. So, like I said about the blue economy, the Nigerian coastal area is still grossly unexplored and under-researched. So there's a lot of work in that space. The Nigerian agency we've talked about. And then the traditional operators in terms of what is available for you in hydrography are still there. The MPAs of this world, the dredging businesses is improving a lot. And then number 6 is critical because the future of oil and gas in Nigeria is offshore. Onshore is a bit of a problem with all the issues around it. But offshore, we have not even gone halfway. So there's still a lot of work to be done offshore. So there's still a lot of potential in that space. And then we also have new technologies coming in terms of offshore wind farms, which opportunities for surveyors will come in. There is also wave and the tidal technologies in terms of generating power. And then the next one is for people to take over from the role that I do now. That's me done.
All right, thank you very much for that insightful presentation, sir. Now we are a couple of minutes, very much behind schedule. So now we are just going to proceed directly to the panel session. Surveyor Femi, I believe you are on the call on this call, so we are going to proceed to the panel session. The panel session will be handled by Surveyor and Surveyor Taivari. Just give us this presentation. I hope, am I very audible?
Yes, you are.
All right, thank you very much. So, Surveyor Tubulos, so to them will be so our process for this panel session. So,
All right, thank you so very much, Yanu. So you're very impressed. Thank you very much. I've learned a whole lot, and I believe that everyone on the call can attest to the fact that you have given knowledge in the past 30 or so minutes. But just to bring us to a point where you could satisfy the questions that would be brewing in the minds of the young surveyors on this call, we're just going to have a bit of a chat, leveraging on what you have said, and also from the questions we'll get from the chat room. So I would just want you to just give us a bit of insight to how, because you have been in the field for a while, how has technology actually grown from when you, let's just talk about maybe last decade or so, how has technological advancement actually grown in the field of hydrographic surveying? When you got into the industry, what were you used to, and what are we looking at? And also, what are some things that we could be seeing in the near future?
Okay, can I go ahead?
Yes, please, go ahead, please.
Okay. So, like I said, when I started in Shell, the way we were working then, like I said, the principles are still the same thing. You know, measuring water depth is still measuring water depth. But the way you go about measuring the water depth now, the quantum of data that you collect is completely different. So a good example is in positioning. So when I started in the field of hydrography, our positioning systems were mostly radio positioning systems. Things like Siledes, transponders, and the likes of just like your EDM, like we use. Those exactly what we're doing, range systems, Pulse 8 and Omega systems and blah, blah, blah. You know, and then it was very, very tedious. If you want to do a rig move, you need to book a dedicated helicopter to carry the equipment and personnel and everything to all those shore stations. You need to carry batteries, generators, tents, and all kinds of things. But when GPS came, you know, surveyors were the first set of people to see the potential in GPS. The GPS came as GPS, but surveyors developed a DGPS. So today we are using DGPS, and DGPS has often grown from DGPS to to ROTK, to on-the-fly GPS systems, and even now you have your core stations, which is a millimeter, you know, and you have the CNAV in the offshore space, which is even global, you know, global to millimeter accuracy, or sorry, centimeter accuracy globally. So you can see the advancement in technology, and even now when you talk about other systems in terms of even side scan sonar, the side scan sonar we had in terms of frequencies, you could have frequencies of maybe 50 hertz and 100 hertz when I started. But today now, you have frequencies of 1,600 that is even as clear as a photograph, for example. So you can see lots of advancements in those areas. When I started, the major piece of equipment for bathymetry, which is measuring water depth, is what? It's just your single beam echo sounder. 1 point per ping, 1 depth point per ping. But what do we have now? You even have systems that could go beyond 30,000 points per ping. You know, so why are all these? Why do you have all these improvements? Because of improvements in electronics. That's why surveyors should be very grateful to electrical engineers, you know, and also to the navies of this world. I mean, the Western navies, because they are the ones that are actually in the forefront of these developments. Because if you want to stay ahead, you have to keep improving in those areas, you know. So I don't know if, and then when I started also, we were doing plotting and all that with cartography was mostly. Anyway, a lot of you are in Unilag now, and those of you who are in this, you may not have even done your survey drawings using your radiography pen, or what do they call those pens now? You may not even know, you know. But we have moved over to computer-aided drafting, so you can see the shift in technology. And where it is today now is It's AI and machine learning and all that. Just before I left Shell, we were doing some projects in all those things, but I know that they've actually gone a lot more in that space. Yeah, we're talking about a driver of marine vessels that you don't have a captain, for example. It's just autonomous vessels. You know, I was there. We started having AUVs, shallow water AUV, deep water AUV. Then you also have your USVs, or manned surface vessels, and all those kind of stuff. So technology is at the forefront of hydrography. And if people, for the young generation, you just have to be ready to catch up with technology. Otherwise, you just be run out of business.
Thank you so very much. Well, yeah, all right. Thank you very much for being so detailed in your explanation. And it really shows us that there's a bigger prospect for technological advancement in hydrographic surveying. Thank you very much for that response. So, your Defemi Alabi, I'll stay with you now. Climate change, it's not just a buzzword, but it's something that has come to affect almost every area of human endeavors. So I want you to just shed more light on how climate change is affecting coastal areas in West Africa, and what role does hydrographic surveying play in monitoring these changes? Because we talk about beach degradation, ecosystem decline or damage and all that. How can hydrographic surveying, aside bathymetry, aside the rig move and all those things happening in the E&P sector, how can hydrographic surveying be of benefit to shoreline preservation and climate change activity, effects of climate change activity?
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Can you all hear me, please?
Good afternoon, we can hear you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to say a very big thank you to the Research and Innovation Committee for this privilege. Surveyor Peter Evari, thank you for responding to our request. Like I told the organizers, I told them that if it's Surveyor Peter Evari you have here, then you don't need me coming to say anything. Because I was privileged to learn from him while I was in graduate school. And then I've attended one or two seminars where he was a core presenter. So let me not waste too much time about giving a lot of background information. Let me go straight to the question. Now, one critical thing we must look into, apart from the science and the technical and technological aspects, is policy creation. And it's very, 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 very important. Because one policy can actually scatter everything you're doing. No matter how accurate your science is, no matter how accurate your technology is, you must be aware, right, of our environment. You mentioned West Africa. I want to narrow it down to use Nigeria as an example, because all of us here, at least we can witness what's happening here in Nigeria, here in Lagos State. So I'll give two examples, right, and then I would use it to shed light on this climate change issue and coastline degradation and all that. Now, I must say something first, that we must realize that about 70% of the earth is water, and the remaining 30% is solid earth, that's land mass. Now, we must also realize that the oceans of the world can comfortably swallow all the mountains we have. So even before the advent of sea level rise and climate change, we as human beings have had the water as a bigger percentage of the land we had. Now that climate change is occurring, we have the melting of ice sheets here and there, we have a rise in sea level. So somehow we can say that it seems like that 70% of the sea before and 30% land mass has now become somewhat like 75-25. It's something of that. It's not necessarily that exact ratio, but it's like water has eroded a lot of land masses around the world and now has more than what it used to have. Now, we as surveyors, we know, we do a lot of tidal observations to check the rise and fall of sea level, not necessarily as surveyors alone, but as citizens of the nation. When we've never done our mean sea level before in Nigeria. We've never done it for 18.61 years or 19 years before. I think the highest we did was 17 or 16 years, if I'm correct. And that was not even done by the country. It was done by, I think, some oil and gas companies, right? Which after a while, I think they just stopped the campaign. So to an extent, we the professionals have not taken the bull by the horn to say, look, we want to do this thing. The second angle I want to talk to us about is the fact that even when we successfully given the government some data, some information, it did not tally with what they wanted to do. Eco Atlantic City, for instance, that Bar Beach front, that place that used to be called Bar Beach, before the dredging of that place or the reclamation, there were issues on ground that had come to be before, and there were so many research papers that were being, tabled in front of the government to tell them that, look, we have many issues to address that haven't been addressed, and we think that this Eco Atlantic City project may not be the best because they dredged the Lagos Harbor, and in order for them not to allow sand come back, they built moles, East Mole and West Mole, to prevent sand from coming back. And what did that do? It now allowed sand to start eroding from the Bar Beach. Now, they did not correct the error of the East Mole and West Mole. They didn't correct what that one was producing, and they started reclaiming the Eco Atlantic City. And the issue with things like this is that you will start creating another problem without solving one. So before you know it, you have compound problems. Now we're still dealing with climate change. We have not resolved that, and then we now stand field to that front. Now, if you go along the coast in Lagos, I'm privileged to be a part of a particular project. I've been there since 2021, and I observed a lot of erosion going on there, right? And one of the things that has slowed it down, quote unquote, is the sand filling of Eco Atlantic City along that portion. But it is not certain that that thing will stand because a lot of EIA reports from, lecturers, people who were doing their projects in school and all that were presented to the government. They didn't listen. And the EIA report from those who are dredging that place was not made public. It was something that was just done, because they want to quickly get their own thing done. So there are many areas, the area of we the professionals, that's we the surveyors, taking this thing seriously. That's the technical side, that's one. The other area is to ensure that, look, the information we are spreading gets to the masses and also the government. So in the end, why did I say the masses as well? You see, if the masses are aware, I think the voice will be louder when they are kicking against something that is going against what is best for us. But as at the time of Eco Atlantic City, when they started the dredging, I'm very, very sure that not many of the masses knew about the issue of East Mole and West Mole. So let me just end it over here. I believe that with these bullet points, with these small issues I've raised, I think we can all build up from there because we have many intelligent people around us. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Sylvia Adefemi. That's a seminar on its own, if I must say. It's a lecture in a lecture. Thank you very much for detailed description of the impact and how we can address that through policy implementation. I'll stick with you now, Sylvia Evari, and I just want you to learn your thoughts on two issues: operational challenges and safety and security. So because of your own wealth of experience, I want you to tell us what some of the operational challenges you have faced while conducting several surveys, whatever the nature is, peculiar challenges that can cut across, whether it's coastal survey or bathymetry or any kind of survey in that area. And also, how can security or geopolitical issues impact coastal survey operations? So communal issues, and how has this thing impacted, or what is the potential of this thing impacting hydrographic survey operations? So please just lend your thoughts on the challenges you have faced carrying out surveys, common challenges, and how geopolitical and security issues has impacted most negatively, or even if there's a positive impact on survey operations, sir.
Okay, thanks a lot. So a lot of these points that I've highlighted here, even though a few of them has to do with the fact that it's most of it is actually from my experience, in terms of working as a hydrographer offshore. So I remember long time ago, having people go to the field and then they get trapped because of what? Problems of tides. Because when you were, particularly this happens in the Niger Delta area a lot. You go somewhere with your small boat to go and do a survey. You say it's onshore survey, but it's still occasionally they have to do soundings and blah blah blah. And you get into an area, and you are more like you have to wait for 6 hours before you come out of it, because you must have gone there at high tide, and by the time you finish 6 hours later, it's low tide, and you are just trapped. You know, a good example I used to use is for those of these people in this call who attended Unilag behind New Hall, you have that body of water behind New Hall and Bariga area. You know, at high tide, the whole place is flooded, and at low tide, you just cut off. The water is impounded; it's on its own. So those are some basic challenges you face. Other challenges also in terms of, I also mentioned the whole issue of contracting challenges also, where you have hydrographic survey companies that do not actually look at the bids before putting in their submitting their tenders. You know, some of them may not even understand exactly what the work entails. So that's why I talked about the word understanding. You have to have a clear understanding before you can bid for a job. You have to have a clear understanding of what the job entails, so that at the end of the day, you know, because there have been instances where you give a contractor a job and he cannot execute it because looking at it later, he discovers that, oh, he's quoted very, very low for vessels, for example, and nobody can even hire a vessel for him at that particular rate. And then it's amazing to see how the security situation in the Niger Delta deteriorated. You know, when I went to work, when I started working in the oil and gas business, you could go anywhere in the Niger Delta without. We never used security until security started maybe sometime in the late 90s or something like that. When after the Ogoni issues and blah blah blah, that people were a bit scared about what will happen. And so that's when security issues come in. That now, if you are working offshore, you have to have a lead and chase security vessels. You have the vessel at your back and a vessel in front of you, just guarding you to go and do a job. See, all these things add up to the cost of the oil. You know, so it's important. And for people who have not actually worked in those areas, these are things that you need to take seriously. In the past, if you go to the site, you can also go into the village and have discussions with the villagers and do whatever you want to do then. But now you can't try it. You are just locked up in your hotel or camp or wherever you are. So things have actually changed a lot. And then when it came to safety also, getting into the business, there were a lot of things that we were doing there which were really, really unsafe. But over time, you could see improvements in safety management, behavior of people, the change of the attitudes of people when it comes to safety and those kind of stuff. So those are some of the basic things. And then in terms of project execution, you know, I mentioned the fact that some people get into surveying and without really understanding the basics of surveying. Like you have a lot of auxiliary disciplines now coming into the field of doing work as an online surveyor, you know, who do not understand the whole concept of coordinate transformation systems or coordinate systems, datum, and things like that. And I told you the situation that it was in my project that we lost an AUV that cost thousands of dollars because somebody made a mistake. Is that happening? It's still happening all over the place. You know, because people are not really diligent or do not really care for, yeah. And then the oil and gas business also, why do they use what we call QAQC reps? It's also because of some of these problems, you know, safety, security issues, safety issues to make sure the contractors work safely and blah, blah, blah. But in those days, when I joined Shell, we had very competent contractors. That's the truth. The people like Joe Site and the other people, very competent. In short, I learned a lot from those people. And some of the best friends I made in the profession, I made it working with them offshore. You know, but before I left, you go out with some contractors, you are the one that is teaching them what to do. So that's why I was talking about understanding. And I use that word understanding because of my experience and exposure in the business. I believe as a lecturer, let me not talk too much.
No, sir. We are very you know, we can't get enough of your wealth of experience and knowledge. So yeah, thank you very much for lending your thoughts to that. But I would still want to stick with you on this. You know, about 2 years ago, when we were celebrating the International Hydrographic Day at the Naval Dockyard here in Lagos, you know, there was an issue which came up where the representative of the Shell company was actually grilled by most of the attendees, and it was on the issue of oil companies not sending in survey data to the likes of SOCON or the Nigerian Navy. You know, oil companies just come in, get all the survey data from our waters, and they go away with it, and we don't have this in as in the archives where maybe researchers or student researchers can gain access. And I want you to speak to that relative to regulatory environment. So what is like the regulatory framework that governs hydrographic survey in Nigeria? And how can we make sure that this framework, if not properly structured, can be of benefit not just to those in the field, but to those of us that are coming behind to also know that, oh, I can make use of a hydrographic data if I need it. You know, we're looking at the Seabed 2030 project where we're looking at mapping the entire oceans in the world. You know, at a point in time, we will not need to carry out these surveys from time to time. What is the regulatory framework like right now regards to the challenge that we are facing with IOCs surveying our waters and keeping the data?
Okay, thanks for so the framework. You see, what a lot of people do not understand is that the oil and gas business is actually regulated by the Petroleum Act. So whether you are doing hydrographic survey, whether you are doing drilling or whatever you are doing, is the Petroleum Act that governs everything that these oil companies do. And one thing I need to tell you again is that oil companies are very compliant. It's not because I worked there, I've left, so I can say whatever I want to say now. Nobody's going to be on my neck. But that's not the case, because working as a senior person in Shell, I know this for sure. The oil companies are very, very compliant. Compliant based on what? The rules and the regulations. So what is happening is that it's just that a lot of people do not know. In terms of SOCON and the other people, they do not know all these things. So they try to use their muscle to try and get somebody. It doesn't work that way. You have to look at the laws. What do the laws actually say? And saying that the data from the oil IOCs do not share, that is not correct. Because every data that the IOC collects actually resides with who? With DPRO, that's Department of Petroleum Resources, which they now call what? The Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Agency. So the upstream regulatory agencies are the ones that manage the activities of the oil and gas business in terms of the law. Understood? And then also, there is also a policy statement in Nigeria that says before you go and do any work offshore, you have to get naval permit. And part of the Navy giving you that permit is for you to return back to them the data that you have acquired. And not only that, when you are going to the field to acquire that data, the Navy will also put one or two of their personnel on board your vessel. You can verify all these things I'm saying, not because of. So you get the permit, you get Navy people putting their people on board to see exactly what you are doing, and also to ensure that you work within the ambience of what you said you're going to work, the area, and all, so that you don't go and work in other people's acreages. And also for the naval personnel to also learn some of these new technologies that is also available out there. And then when I was chief surveyor of Shell 2 years ago, I retired. So I don't think I was in that conference or so. If I came, maybe I came a little bit late. But these things are there. So let me also state it here categorically. If you want to do research work, that data is not confidential, and we always share it. All you need to do to get data as a student or as a researcher, you only just write to DPR, or now the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Agency, and get the approval. And that DPR, sorry, because I'm old school, I keep talking about DPR. The Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Agency will now write to Shell. I've given data to so many PhD students, BSc students, and all that. But people don't understand the process. So they think that the oil companies are hoarding data. No. If you doubt what I'm saying, go to the Nigerian Navy office, 5 Point Road, Apapa. Go and ask them if Shell was not depositing all our data there with them. Yeah. So I don't know if I've actually answered your question or clarified a few of the misconception.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very
And,
much. So,
and let me say something also. You see, that's why I said there that the growth area of the the National Hydrographic Agency. So that agency, I've not taken time to read what the Act says in terms of their roles and their responsibilities. I'm going to do that. And I believe also that they will also, they will also inherit a lot of the role of the former Naval Hydrographic Office. And I'm sure definitely they will capture all this, because when you talk about hydrographic charts, all these admiralty charts and all, how do they update it? How do you update those charts if you do not get data from all these people? Yeah. So let me leave it at that.
all right, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the clarifications. I really appreciate. I'll stay with you now, so your Femi, Defemi. So we have observed, just like we have seen electrical engineers coming in to be navigators, people that did not even have a background discipline in survey. They are all doing navigation work now and calling themselves hydrographic surveyors. Now, who can be said by law to be a hydrographic surveyor? And I want you to speak on this relative to survey coordinator. Who can we say is qualified to be a hydrographic? Because it's like people are poaching jobs that are meant for surveyors, and these companies actually really don't care. As long as you can operate those navigation equipment and the softwares, you'll be employed. So what does the law say, and who is a hydrographic surveyor? And if we are not doing it right, what can we do in terms of, you're talking about policy formation and implementation to make it as a standard that the people that are working there are actually those that ought to work there? So we have already mentioned someone who misplaced a conversion system and lost a UAV that was worth thousands of dollars. So how can we ensure that the people that are working there are actual surveyors, who are surveyors by the Coordination Act, and what can be done to curtail these excesses that we are finding in the industry today? So, Femi, you're up, please.
Okay, can we all hear me, please?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, I'm going to mention a particular name or a particular phrase, right? Peter Ivari, are you with me, sir? Please, do you remember the phrase you call bloody Jews?
I do.
Okay, I have to just use that in this context. I think it suits this context, right? It's a phrase I got from Savio Peter Ivari, right? And I think the particular example he gave to us then is the same example he had spoken about earlier on twice today. He spoke about the fact that somebody wrongly configured an unmanned vehicle, used the wrong coordinate system, and it ended up in the propeller of a particular ship. Now, it didn't just cost that company money, it also wasted their time and data as well. So they lost on all fronts. And I think because of that particular bad incident, they made a policy in that company that only surveyors, that's we, the people with the training, the academic training, the professional qualification, should be the ones handling this thing. You see, the issue we are having is multifaceted. Why? People are hungry, they want to eat, they don't have jobs. So anything that comes their way, they want to do it. And if they show any slight level of competence, they jump into it and claim they are what they are not. And because when they get such jobs, probably they bribe anybody they need to bribe, and they get away with what they need to get away with. So from different perspectives, right, before looking into the Survey Coordination Act, using your own human intelligence, you can see gaps, right? You can see areas where things ought not to be. So people who are calling themselves but they're not. It's a problem. Another issue I would raise is the fact that we in the surveying community, we've not risen up to the occasion. We've not taken these things as seriously as they ought to. If we want to look at Survey Coordination Act, I want to read it exactly how it is in the Act. I will read it, I will just rush it because it's quite long, so that you can see that truly there's something that protects you as a surveyor, right? But how well have we used what is obtainable in the law? It's one thing for you to have a law, it's another thing for you to enforce it. And any law that is not enforced automatically becomes no law. That is the truth. That is the truth. I'll give another example. In America, when they gave a policy for standardization of the, what they call it now, standardization of the length of the measurement for length, because then all sorts of, every factory had their own standards. Some will use feet, some will use yards, some will use, you name it, all sorts of things. And until there was a serious incident, a fire outbreak in America, that the company that brought hose, that brought the firefighters that came to fight the fire, they needed just a hose to connect to their tank of water. And they couldn't get anyone that fits into their own because of different companies or different factories using different measurements for length for their standards. So that was a big issue until a disaster occurred before they now decided to wake up and enforce the policy. So by virtue of Survey Coordination Act, yes, the surveyor is protected, right, to be the one handling survey jobs, and even up to hydrographic level. But the truth of the matter is that maybe until an accident occurs, like the one of the propeller, damaging the equipment, right? Or until surveyors rise up and say, look, let us even increase our skill set. Let us know this thing deeper than what we have learned at maybe school level or wherever, so that we are armed enough to take the bull by the horn. Let me quickly just read what Survey Coordination Act says in line with hydrography, so that I don't read, because the whole act is very, 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 very long, right? It says, the act refers to such non-cadastral surveys as survey works and defined as the carrying out or ascertaining with a view to determine the shape and size of any part of the surface of any land, including any natural feature on the land, or all or any of the following. That is to say, I want to quickly jump to good. The D part is topographical or hydrographic surveys, triangulation and trilateration. Of course, it's an old act, so it had to mention these particular things. And then it says the act stipulates that no such survey work can be carried out unless the person responsible for doing the work has given prior notice in writing to the Director of Federal Survey, stating its particulars. He is expected to state his name and address, and if he's carrying out the work on behalf of someone else, the name and address of such other person. The Director of Federal Service is expected to give a counter notice. No. And then it says the act does not specifically stipulate who is eligible to give a notice and receive a counter notice. In practice, however, this may be an individual or an incorporated company. The Surveyor's Licensing Board requirement is that in the case of any individual giving the notice, such an individual must be a surveyor as defined by Cap 194. That means that the person must be a licensed surveyor. In the case of the incorporation of a company proposing to carry out the survey work, then such company must engage the services of a licensed surveyor. Summary of it. So the Survey Coordination Act captures the fact that hydrographic survey is survey work and must be done by licensed surveyors. Now, the question is, how many licensed surveyors have scaled up their skill set to the point whereby they're competent enough, and companies who are giving survey jobs are confident enough to give you the survey job? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Femi. Surveyor Ivari, do you have anything to add to what Surveyor Femi has said with respect to the challenges that we are facing in that direction?
No, I think the only thing I just want to say is the fact that it's actually SOCON that has to. I also give an example of myself when I was doing my surveyor's exam or surveyor's project defense. I deliberately chose hydrographic survey, and it was a big struggle at that particular time. So I think it all resides with SOCON to just try and work in that particular space. And working in that particular space, they also have to understand what are the various laws that govern a lot of other things. You understand? Because the oil and gas business is actually managed by a different set of laws. So if they want to come into that particular space, they also need to be able to arm themselves to know that, look, we are partners partners with this business to just ensure that you guys have competent people. Yeah, because there are lots of infiltration into the offshore space, particularly hydrographic survey space. And it all started with the fact that in the past, there were not too many Nigerian hydrographic surveyors, in quote. You understand? So it was more like mostly expatriates, and then lots of people saw it as an avenue to working offshore and seeing an avenue to come into that space. So it's left for the regulatory agencies, which is more in this case, which is SOCON, to be able to take a stand on what to do. So if they do not want to take a stand on what to do, then individual companies will do exactly what they want to do. And that's why we run into these particular issues. So I had to learn from that experience working for Shell at that particular time to say, look, next time I'm doing a critical project, I have to go through the CVs of anybody that wants to come and be an online surveyor, particularly if I know that if there's something critical that something that can go wrong. Because when you start having issues of continued transformation and you're explaining, I remember discussing with the guy who was involved at that particular, he didn't understand what we were talking about. And up to all the interviews, he didn't understand that he made a mistake. You know, so it's that bad. But we'll get there someday.
All right, hopefully we will. Hopefully we will. And just before we wrap up this session, you mentioned challenges with the community when we talk about security. I'm sticking with you now, so we're very. Now, how can, for young people that are getting into the industry, how can we use community engagement as a tool? Or how important is community engagement and local knowledge? How important is it as a tool in conducting effective either coastal surveys or hydrographic surveys? So it's not just you, because you have some armed military officers in your boat, you can just get into a place and start surveying the area. How important is community engagement to the benefit of the surveyor and the output which he is going to capture, like the data he is going to capture?
Yeah. So let me say something. You see, whether you have security, you have your lead, your chase boats and other things, it doesn't stop community from coming to make trouble if they want to make trouble. It doesn't. So those ones are to look after for things like militancy and those kind of stuff. So which is a completely different ballgame as a form of deterrent for those ones. Because if the communities want to stop you, they bring all their fishing boats and come and line up. Are you going to shoot them? You will not. So community engagement is something that is also very, very critical. That's why you will have to identify the communities that are by the coastline. For example, if you are doing a work, say, let's say offshore Lekki now, you have to look at which communities are there. And most oil and gas companies are very, very knowledgeable in that space. They have dedicated community license officers who actually interact with the communities and get what they call freedom to operate. So they engage them and then they sign a document with the companies to say, okay, we're going to allow you to work. We're not going to disturb you and things like that. And now they call them, is it GMOU or so, General Memoranda of Understanding or so, which is actually in the new PIA law. So the oil companies have to set up GMOU, in which case they make aside some part of their budgets and things like that for the development and what the community needs in agreement with them. So those things are actually things that will help. And then as survey companies also, one of the things we used to do also is to take all those the local people, the local labor and things like that. So you cannot build relationship with those guys because they know that you're going to come there always to work. So each time they come, you use those people, and then they will also be your kind of a bridge to the community. But what you have to do is to follow processes, because most oil and gas companies have processes you have to follow. For example, like when I was working in Shell, if you don't have your freedom, what we call the FTO, the freedom to operate, you do not even move your vessels at all. Because you have to have that agreement, first of all, with the community. Because whether you have 10 naval boats there, it doesn't stop them from coming to those guys are not scared of naval boats. Let me tell you. You understand? Because these people are not coming to make the kind of trouble where they won't be shooting at you. No, they will just disrupt your work. You know, and you have to reach agreement also. Another thing again that working in the offshore space that those communities don't like is for you to destroy their fishing nets, because that's their means of livelihood. So if you are working in an area, those are the kind of engagements you have upfront to say, okay, I'm going to be working between this period, and this is the area I'm working. So you have to make sure that they don't bring in their fishing nets there. And then if you also destroy their fishing nets, you have to pay for it. Yeah.
All right, sir. All right, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Because we are pressed of time now, I would just want to let's just bring this home. Now, this is a personal experience. I had a very big struggle trying to break into the hydrographic survey space because most of the companies I applied for internships were not giving me audience. So we have a lot of young people that are just fresh graduates from school and they want to get into the hydrographic. Can you just please paint a realistic roadmap considering the current constraints we are having in the country today, where someone can grow from a survey graduate, get into the industry, get internship opportunities, and move on to becoming a sound hydrographic surveyor in today's Nigeria? I'm talking about something that is very practical, because I have people that walk up to me like they have applied for thousands of internships with companies that are operating in Nigeria, but there's really no audience given to them. So how can one gain this? Because it's not classroom knowledge that we kind of talk about here, that we're talking about is field experience. Then how can we chart a roadmap to that in terms of hydrographic, becoming a hydrographic surveyor?
Is that for me or for Alabi?
Yes, for you, sir. For you, sir. For you, sir, please. For you, sir.
Okay, so the issue is this. The business environment as we have it today is kind of difficult in Nigeria. Yeah, it's difficult for all the companies. And like I've mentioned, there's one of the challenges that a lot of the IOCs are exiting, particularly exiting the offshore and the shallow water space, and then leaving mostly deep water and all that. So because of that, so the ripple effect is such that the companies have not been very, very busy. Let me put it that way. Both the oil companies as well as the survey companies have not been very, very busy. So there have been very, very sparse work in the last couple of years. COVID also added to that. And then after COVID, a lot of these companies came up with a plan that they want to divest some of their assets. And then typical Nigerian government, it's taking a long time to do a simple divestment, and it's taking ages. So in this period of uncertainty, how will you want to invest money when you don't know where you are going to? You can even hear the minister there, they complaining that ExxonMobil, they have about 400 and something thousand barrels of oil locked in per day because of the fact that they say they want to divest. And you want to divest, that means you want to leave. It's like saying, no, you want to leave the house you are staying in, you want to pack and go and live in a new house, and then somebody saying you should come in and bring money and be renovating the house and changing the tiles and bringing electricians tomorrow and painters and carpenter. It's not going to be done. You just, because you know that the very day they give you the approval, you're going to leave. So that ripple effect has actually affected the industry, And then I was joking with somebody recently, said, have you been to Port Harcourt? Port Harcourt, the economy of Port Harcourt is really down. Because it starts from drilling. Once you are drilling, how many rigs what is the rig count in Nigeria today generally? Forget about hydrographic survey. The rig count is one of the lowest we have ever had. And when these rigs come in, what does it tell you? You have to acquire land, and then you have to do survey. You have to do sounding, you have to dredge, you have to construct roads. If it's offshore, you have to do hydrographic survey. But those things have been very, very far between in the last couple of years. So that's why I said it's a challenge. And if you look at my presentation, I also said it's an opportunity. Because people who are going to be taking over now from these IOCs, they need to invest to keep in line with the current government's aspiration to get to 2 million barrels per day. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. If the will is there and we're ready to bring provide their own counterpart funding when it comes to the joint ventures that they run. So coming back home, so because of all this stuff, what is happening is that the companies are actually hamstrung. For example, you have a job today, and then you don't have a job again for the next 2 to 3 months. It cannot allow you to plan. Even in Shell, when I was there, we were my team was almost 50. Before I left, we were like 20 something. You can see the cut back. I'm talking about staff, not contractors now this time. So that's the ripple effect. But where it starts from is that if you want, because of the risk involved in hydrography, it's a bit difficult to just bring somebody in. And then the next thing is because a lot of these companies want to make money, so they want to bring you in and the next. So if you have done IT, what I mean IT, industrial training in one of these companies, then you stand a better chance, because at least they know that when you come, they will not be telling you what is water level or how do you measure tides, or what is positioning, what is GPS and this kind of stuff. So at least you have some basic knowledge. Because remember, before you can work offshore, there are also basic training you have to have. And the basic training is what? BOSIET. That is basic offshore survival training. It costs money. So in those days, I don't know how much it costs now, but I know that in those days it used to be more than $1,000. And today, how much is it? So when you have an IT student coming in to work for you, and you go and spend $1 million plus now to train the person, and in 6 months' time, the person is gone back. But the truth about the situation is that the oil companies, sorry, not oil companies, the survey contracting business, they are ready to take young people. Yeah. But the problem is that the current environment does not encourage that, because of the current macroeconomic issues. That has been there since COVID and post-COVID. But with the government's economic policy in that particular space, if you have to get to 2 million barrels, you need a lot of people to be able to support the business. So the opportunities to come back again. Yeah, I don't know if I've answered.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. And then they're also training. You also have the Cat B training and all that for people to become proficient in hydrography, which can also help.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So we'll take the last set of questions, and then we'll take any from the Q&A, and then we'll now get to our closing formalities. So, Surveyor Defemi, please, when we're talking about hydrographic surveying, we generate a lot of data in hydrographic surveying, whether it is satellite bathymetry, aerial or marine. So, and there's a challenge of integrating these multiple sources of data. So how can we actually solve this challenge of integrating this multiple source of data or multiple source of technological, facets when it comes to having data that can be relied upon? How can we solve this challenge? Because we have data from different sources, and we need to put this data, clean it up together, and let it so that it can be useful to all the parts and stakeholders involved. How can we do that? I'm talking about that. What are the future prospects, or what are the prospects of technological integration in the future? So, Yofemi, are you there?
Okay. Yes, I'm here, please. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I think this is something that ideally should not be an issue, right? If we had not played with some fundamental principles of surveying, right? First of all, if we have, like now, I know that we as surveyors, right, land surveying, for instance, we already have the standard coordinate systems we use, right? So it just has to do with consistency in coordinate systems. And then if somebody is using a different coordinate system, when you want to add their data into your database, all you need to do is convert. Another critical thing that we must return to is the use of ground controls. It's very important, extremely important, right? In as much as we have satellite-based technology that helps us, and we can easily just start doing our jobs and all of that, ground controls always help us to tie our data, right? As a matter of fact, the satellite the use of GNSS positioning equipment and all that, we actually get better accuracy when we have our ground controls, right? It helps to, eliminate any possible what's it called now? Errors, right? There are ways which we can do our observation and, we still use our ground controls. But you see, this issue is a very serious one. And I'll tell you why I said it's very serious. In this day and age, a lot of us have access to even drone images and all that. And we really don't know, or we really don't want to bother ourselves about the limitations of these things, right? And so when we have a job, we just want to get it done as fast as possible, which is not bad. But if you have to compromise accuracy for speed, then it's bad. Speed and accuracy is the key thing. So you must have both of them in your pocket. So when it comes to having multiple data sets and from different, and you want to harmonize everything and all that, these are things that ideally, right, our principles in surveying and our journey in surveying, we realize that these things have already been taken care of over the years. Every coordinate system, or almost every coordinate system, has a transformation to another one, right? There's a way you can easily just transform from this system to the other one. There's a way you can tie your jobs together, even when you did them independently. You have ground controls which you can use to bring everything together using the same coordinate system. But we've not paid attention to these things. We've not. Let me even draw us back just one more time to the Survey Coordination Act. One of the essence of the Survey Coordination Act is to actually harmonize data. And so anytime somebody does a job, the data set is stored and it can easily be retrieved and reused if need be, so that you don't have to be doing survey operations over and over again when somebody has already carried out the data. Has already executed the survey job and has it stored somewhere at the federal service. Somebody else who is working along that area can easily just go there, retrieve the data. Maybe he pays some certain amount of money, but of course it will be less expensive than starting the survey job all over again from the beginning. So everything we need to do in terms of harmonizing data, we have almost all of them at our fingertips. If you open ArcGIS, ArcGIS has all, well, don't let me say all, but at least it has all the common coordinate systems and datums that exist. And so there's room for transformation, there's room for how you can tie everything together, but we must go back to the principles of surveying. We work from known to unknown, we work from whole to part. These are the things that will help us to easily harmonize data. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for that. Surveyor Barry, I want you to please help us practically. I would say you were in the old school, mid school, now in the new school with regards to data management in hydrographic surveying, from your years in practice till now in lecturing and all that. How were you able to fuse in all this data through the years up to when you now have artificial intelligence and the likes? How have you been able to manage or integrate these different sets of data from different formats and systems, and how are you able to go with it all through your career path? And what lies ahead, with the advent of AI and, robotics and stuff like that. So please just put us through a practical way you're able to go through all this.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Alabi, for your insight into that area. So one of the key things, like I said, all the improvements we have enjoyed. Can somebody go on mute, please? So one of the key things we have enjoyed in surveying is actually the advent of the computers, as well as all the ancillary softwares that go with it. Particularly GIS and all that. So I also remember when I just joined Shell, and that was when GPS was just coming up. For us to be able to fully utilize GPS, we needed to make sure that we understood this issue of transformation, from one datum to another datum and blah, 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 blah. So I was involved in a project and I worked with Federal Surveys. It was paid for by Shell, that we had to determine transformation parameters for the southern part of Nigeria. And it was a very, very useful project. That was one area. So because in the GIS environment, the integrator of all the data sets is just your X and your Y, which is critical. And so with all the databases that you have, all the data that you have in your databases, then you are able to bring everything in. The good thing is with GIS, Shell was one of the first set of companies in Nigeria here to introduce the use of ArcGIS and all that. First of all, we started with MicroStation in terms of drafting, moving from manual drafting to the computer-aided drafting using MicroStation, and then we migrated to ArcGIS and blah blah blah. But the good thing about it is that with the advent of technology now all over the space, and the fact that data storage and all those kind of things is not so much of an issue anymore. It's the right way to go for you to have all your data sets available. So all the big players in the oil and gas business, they have all their data, all managed in a GIS environment. And they spend tons and tons of human manpower as well as resources to be able to maintain those things and make sure they keep abreast of what is happening. But but bringing it now to the micro level in terms of projects, there's what we call site characterization. So where you bring all the data sets into a useful place so that you can be able to use that to add value to what you do. So that's the way it's going, and that's where in that particular space, that's where your AI and machine learning and all that will be able to be very, very useful, so that you, for example, you want to develop a field, you can bring in all the data sets together, the engineering data sets, the geological data sets, the geophysics data sets, the survey data sets, cultural data, and everything, so that you are seeing everything as it should be. That's the future. When I left, it was still at its infancy, but we were doing it at the micro level. But you can actually get to the level where it is done at the macro level, so that you just keep building on that your data base. Whenever you have new data, you use it, because one of the key things, like I tell my students, is that in surveying or hydrography, is that you acquire once and use many times. And if you have to use it many times, then you have to make sure that it's properly managed, and then you can turn that data into different ways that you want to use it. For example, in the field of geophysics, you acquire your seismic data, maybe in the 90s. But even today, there are new technology in terms of how you can process that data and deal with some of the frequencies that you could not deal with in the past. But today, you can be able to process it and get better imagery out of it. So that's exactly the same philosophy that is happening. But luckily, we have GIS, which is the key platform for us we to be able to do that. And that's one area where we as surveyors also we add value to the business. I wonder that without GIS today in the oil and gas business, where we will be. But the good thing about it also brings in a lot of people with different expertise. So you are working with, remember I talked about the stakeholders. We are working today with computer scientists, AI specialists, or machine learning, IT people, geologists, and all that, even in survey departments, who are up there working in terms of data integration. Because that is one of the value we as surveyors bring to the table, data integration. Because we own what? The X, Y, and Z. I remember my boss in Shell used to say in those days that if you can't map it, you can't manage it. Yeah, and it's true. If you cannot map something, that means you don't know what you own. So you can't manage what if you don't know that you own something. So I think I'll stop there.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. We have now successfully come to the end of the panel discussion. A very big thank you to both our speakers, and now we'll proceed to the question and answer section. So if you have any question, we have not, there are no questions in the chat box yet, but you can raise your hand and you would have the floor so that you can ask your question and direct it appropriately. Thank you. So if you have any question, just use the raising hand emoji. Yeah, we can proceed. We have Adewale. Okay. Ahmed, Waidi. So we have 3 questions already. So Adewale, please, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate Survey Very and Survey Adefemi for the wonderful lecture so far. Now, my question is as regards the issues with SOCON. I actually know someone like what Survey Peter Ibarra said that about his when he defended his project and all that. I know someone that something of such almost happened to him, and it was because he did hydrography, and the people on the panel, they were not really, it wasn't really their thing. And it's actually understandable. You can't be everywhere. But then my question is that, is there a way that the Hydrographic Society can actually take second up on this thing, such that people that will be on panels should be people that really understand, because this thing might lead to people's failure. And I mean, you trying to convince people who don't know what you are talking about, and your fate is like this in their hands. They will be the ultimate decider of what next to do. That's my question. Is anyone there?
Yes, we can hear you. So, Evari, I don't know if you got his question, or we need to amplify that. Hello, sorry, Evari, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. I think
Okay.
it's a valid point. It's a valid point, which we have actually shared with people who are in SOCON at that particular time to try and see that, because it's a very easy and straightforward thing. You have an idea of all the projects that are submitted, and then those ones that are hydrography related and that kind of stuff, you put that together and then pass it over to people who are specialists in that area that they can ask those questions. It's a valid thing to do. So I think it's one area that people in SOCON would should take a look at. You know, at one time I was actually nominated as a representative in SOCON, but unfortunately I didn't make it at that particular time. Later again, so it was one of the points in my mind to actually share with those guys to say this is one area that we really need to take a look at to defend the hydrography, because whether we like it or not, hydrographers are still surveyors as per what the Act currently says. So I think that engagement, we will continue to do it. And I think also when people do not get fair hearing, the good thing about my own side, my own defense at that particular time, that the people, it was more like a learning curve for them. So they really wanted to learn. So it became a session where they dragged on for more than 1.5 hours, you know. But I can understand the issue when you get into people who do not understand what you are talking about, and they start asking you some questions that are just terrible. So it's something we need to take a look at. And even you also as young surveyors, it's something also that you guys can also still work on by passing it over through your Lagos State NIS branch to reach out to SOCON so that they can do something about it.
For that insight, sir. First of all, I would like to apologize. Looks like we are some minutes over the time for the webinar. So quickly, I'll call on Amit to unmute himself and ask his question.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So first, I would like to say a big thank you to the organizers and the speakers for the very insightful question session. So my question is directed to Vari. So from what you were talking about, like getting data from the IOCs, because from my own personal experience, I could corroborate some of the things you said about, the need for the permits from the Navy before you could carry out hydrographic surveys. And then I got a bit of clarity on some other issues that was not very clear on before. So it was obvious to me that a lot of the problems that are present in the status quo is caused by lack of awareness about a lot of issues. So, and I want to believe that, you have access to this information by virtue of your position in the industry. So what I want to ask is that, for say a regular surveyor or, just students, how can these barriers to awareness be broken down?
Get understanding, which you are already getting now. No, I appreciate, I understand what you're trying to say, to make sure that, yeah, because it's also important. The good thing about the survey department, at least the guys who are also left there, there are people who have listening ears, so they are ready to listen to you. And if you actually go out there and say this is what you want, they will put you through on the process on how you can get it. Because every organization, they have processes in place to be able to manage those kind of things. It's just for you to be able to aware, so for you to be aware that this is the process to follow. And it's also for those of you who are students here to also know and pass it among yourselves. And it's also for you who are students and your student meetings to actually invite some of these people who are currently in the industry to come and share some of these processes with you. Because I know if you don't know, you just keep groping in the dark, and there's no way it is written down that this is how to go about it and blah blah blah. But the process is you write first of all to the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Agency, requesting the IOCs that this is the data set that you want. You know, because most of the survey data we acquire are not confidential data as such, in quotes. There are some that are, but some are not confidential. And it depends on what. And the IOCs themselves, they spend a lot of money on research and development, so they are actually interested in those kind of information. You know, particularly when you are doing something that will also benefit them. You know, so different ways. Use whatever you through your local association to actually organize sessions and bring these people to come and talk. Your also your personal contacts in all these areas. You know, you also, even me, I'm also available for my students who are Unilag, say they want data. I always point them out to where to get some of this data that they need. You know, because it's only organizations that do not want young people to grow that will want to be hiding data, particularly data that is not confidential. You know, so you have water depth information. What's confidential about water depth? You know?
Thank you very much, sir. YD and if Adewale, please ask your question. Then every other person who has a question, please leave your question in the chat box, and I'll read it out to our panelists. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much to Surveyor Peter Ibarri and Surveyor Adefemi Alabi. So my question is just because I'm a surveying set in the University of Lagos. So I just want to ask a question regarding area of focus. Say, for example, I like hydrography. I think that was my intention before I chose surveying. And also now I think I've come to like GIS. So I don't know if either of the two speakers can share kind of a word of advice for a student like me who is like looking at which of the two areas to really key in and focus on, for the future. That's just my question.
Let me go first now.
Is Sophia Alabi still on the call? I don't think so. You can proceed, sir.
Yes, I am. No, yes, I am. I'm on the call. I have to, I keep muting and unmuting. So that's it. Okay. So I think all I would say is this: you're already a student of surveying as a whole, right? Do your best to pursue your dreams, but leave an open mind because of the volatility of the economy, right? If you ask me, I don't think I wanted to ever practice land surveying for one split second when I left school. But as fate will have it, once in a while, that is what brings bread to the table. And so if I had closed that door completely, I don't know what would have happened. So I think it's best you leave your options open because you already have the training for most of these areas, but still keep your dream alive. And attending seminars like this and being in touch will help you move further and further towards your dream. But please don't close your mind. Do what you want to do, pursue your dreams, and leave an open mind because anything can happen at any time. That's just the summary of my advice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophia Alabi. So, Peter, do you have anything to add to what Sophia Alabi has said?
I don't know. What year are you? in the university
Year
now?
2, sir. Year 2.
Okay, like you said, I think you still keep an open mind because you still have about 3 more years to make up your mind what you want to do. But the key thing about it is just, I think the key thing is to follow your heart, exactly, because there's hydrography has its advantages, it also has its disadvantages. Because as a young hydrographer, you have to work offshore. If you are somebody that likes excitement, then that's something will be good for you. But if you are somebody that don't like excitement, then hydrography will not be for you. That's the truth. You know. So, but in hydrography, there's a lot of excitement. But also in hydrography, you can also specialize in GIS, in the GIS aspects related to hydrography. So you can also live in both worlds.
All right, thank you, sir. There's a question in the chat box. It says, I don't know if this has been addressed. Okay. You mentioned one of the CAT certification and if there is any institution offering that in Nigeria at the moment.
Okay, Cat A, you have Cat A and Cat B. Cat A being the theory aspect and Cat B being the, it's just a proficiency, something that was, I think it's IHO certified training. So the whole essence of this CAT training is the fact that when you have it, you know, your certification, your certificate is recognized globally. Let me put it that way. So if you want to go and work in Malaysia or anywhere in the world, it is also recognized that you are a hydrographer. Let me put it in quotes. So the way it works is that there are some institutions, when you go out there, you also get that certification, like Plymouth. I think I know of Plymouth, that you have the Cat A and the Cat B. But otherwise, there are also there's also some organizations, but I know of an organization they call Skills Trade in the UK, in Holland, that they also do Cat B, and they have a relationship with Starfix Geo Solutions here in Nigeria. They just had a training about a month or two ago here in Lagos. It's kind of expensive. That's the truth. It's about 3.6 million naira. Yeah, because I know it's about maybe close to $2,000 or so, 2,000 something dollars. Yeah, it's an expensive training. So hydrography is not cheap at all, but it's worth it. So you can talk to Starfix Geo Solutions. I know they are planning something else again, but they'll be able to give you the time and the date when you can take that Cat B. Because hydrography actually at the initial stage is hands-on. You have to just get trained, and to get trained is at least having this basic thing in the office and then go to the offshore environment to demonstrate your skills. I don't know if that helps.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. So now, so we have successfully come to the end of today's session. Please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sawyer Peter Ibari and Sawyer Defemi Alabi. I must say, and I think I speak the mind of everyone on the call, that this has been very educative. This has been very educative and enlightening. And I of course, this is not going to be our last meeting. Subsequent in the future, we would always have this platform where we bring you to share your insights as to how to hand over the baton to the next set of hydrographers that would have even a more rewarding career than you have had in your years of practice. And at this point, I'd want us to just take a brief group photo. If it's not going to be too much of a hassle, just turn on our cameras, and so that we can actually take a group photograph just for keeps. Okay. Mr. Samuel, I don't know if you can help us with that. Let us know when you're ready, please.
Sylvester, please, can you come again? I didn't hear that very well.
You help us take the group photograph. So please just let us know when when we are positioned so that you can help us from that your end.
All right. Let me. Some people are still trying to turn on their video. Okay. I'm about
Lovely
to.
people.
I'm taking it now. Okay. Let me take one more.
Okay, are we good?
Yeah, we are good.
All right. So thank you very much once again to our panelists and for those that were able to make it to the call. I will not fail to recognize the presence of the State Chair, YSN Lagos State Surveyor Deku K. Thank you for honoring our invitation. And to every member of the executive that is on the call, I really appreciate each and every one of us. And most especially to my vice chairman, thank you for being so resourceful. And finally, to our panelists, I cannot thank you enough. This has been a great session, and I want to assure you that all the knowledge you have shared is not going to waste. Of course, 5-10 years down the line, we would have people walk up to you and say, oh, I recall you speaking sometime on 2nd June 2024, and that actually prompted me to take up a career in hydrographic surveying. So thank you very much for the Surveyor Adefemi. Alawi, thank you very much, Surveyor Peter Ebari. We are very grateful on behalf of the Seminar Research and Innovation Committee and Young Surveyors Lagos State branch. We say thank you very much and God bless you. And to the rest of our members, please keep in touch. We have a lot of programs that are still unfolding from the Seminar Research and Innovation Committee, and we want each and every one of us to be a part. So please stay blessed and let's all have a wonderful week ahead. Thank you very much.